Special counsel Jack Smith filed a motion on Monday with the District of Columbia trial court to dismiss the January 6 election interference case against the disgraced former president and now president-elect Donald Trump, prompting widespread speculation about his motivations. Smith also filed a motion with the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals to drop the government's appeal in the documents case involving Trump. That's the stolen documents case, where he stole national secrets from the White House, stored them poorly in an unsecure environment in Mar-a-Lago, and then shared them with who only knows, but certainly with an Australian businessman. While Trump has vowed to fire Jack Smith upon taking office, many people are questioning why the special counsel would preemptively dismiss the cases himself and effectively dismiss himself. This move could be strategic, an effort to keep the cases alive for the future. Smith's motions notably request dismissal without prejudice, meaning the cases can be refiled later. By dismissing them now, Jack Smith prevents Trump's incoming Attorney General, Pam Bondi, from permanently shutting the cases down. Additionally, this allows Smith to frame the reasons for dismissal on his own terms, avoiding potential mischaracterizations from Trump's legal team. Smith explained that the dismissals are not a reflection of the strength of the cases, but are based on legal constraints. According to the Department of Justice's Office of Legal Counsel, a sitting president cannot be criminally prosecuted or indicted under the Constitution. The OLC reasons that such charges would interfere with the president's ability to perform constitutional duties, creating a public stigma and rendering imprisonment incompatible with leadership responsibilities. However, this immunity is temporary and lasts only while the president is in office. Smith noted that once Trump leaves office, he can again face prosecution. The statute of limitations for the crimes also supports this timeline. For the January 6 case, the 5-year deadline for filing charges would typically expire in January 2026, while the documents case has a deadline in August 2027. Both dates fall before Trump's term would end in 2029 if he serves and survives another 4 years. Smith also hinted at the possibility of tolling the statute of limitations, a legal mechanism that pauses the clock on limitations during Trump's time in office. If accepted by the courts, this could extend the timeline for recharging Trump after his presidency ends. Importantly, Smith emphasized that the government's stance on the charges remains unchanged. He continues to assert that Trump attempted to defraud the United States by interfering with the lawful transfer of power, obstructed the congressional certification of the 2020 election, and violated the voting rights of millions by propagating baseless claims of fraud. Similarly, he stands by the charges related to Trump's unlawful retention of sensitive government documents and the obstruction of the investigation to retrieve them, claiming he'd return them when he hadn't. The appeal against Trump's co-defendants in the documents case will proceed unless overturned by the new Attorney General. In contrast, the dismissal of the case against Trump is linked to District Judge Eileen Cannon's ruling that Smith's appointment as a special counsel was illegal. She is, of course, a Trump-appointed MAGA judge, and like Trump's new Attorney General, is effectively working for the man who appointed her rather than for the United States. By acting now, Smith not only preserves the possibility of future prosecution, but ensures that the record reflects his commitment to the charges. His strategy safeguards the cases for potential renewal while signaling confidence in their merit as Trump prepares to take office. The prohibition on prosecuting a sitting president is temporary, it's not permanent. As Smith underscores, a president is ultimately accountable for his misconduct that occurs before, during, and after his service to the country. He further emphasizes that the president lacks the prerogatives of a king and his protection from prosecution. While it remains uncertain whether a future Attorney General under either a Democratic or Republican administration will choose to revive the cases against Trump in 2029, Smith has taken every step possible to ensure that the opportunity remains open. His actions safeguard the potential for accountability, leaving the door ajar for justice in the years to come. Trump responded on Monday to Jack Smith's decision to dismiss the 2 felony cases against him, calling the cases baseless and politically motivated. And I quote, "These cases, like all of the other cases I have been forced to go through, are empty and lawless and should never have been brought," Trump wrote on his social media platform, Truth Social. "It was a political hijacking and a low point in the history of our country that such a thing could have happened, and yet I persevered against all the odds and won. Make America great again." U.S. District Court Judge Tanya Chutkan dismissed the federal election subversion case against Trump. Smith had charged Trump with 4 counts, including conspiracy to defraud the United States in connection with alleged attempts to overturn his 2020 election loss to President Joe Biden. The case faced multiple delays and complications, including a Supreme Court ruling affirming limited immunity for a president from criminal prosecution for official acts. Convenient timing. Trump had also pleaded not guilty to 40 counts related to his handling of the classified materials after leaving office. As we know, Judge Tanya Chutkan dismissed that case back in July. Throughout his campaign, Trump portrayed himself as a champion for his supporters, telling them he was their retribution and declaring, "I'm being indicted for you, and if they're coming after me, they can come after you." I genuinely think that his manipulation of the reality here helped him get elected. People genuinely thought that the deep state was chasing Trump for political reasons, but only because he repeated this time and time again, despite there being no truth to it. The dismissals of these cases were celebrated by Trump's Republican allies. Mike Johnson said a huge win for America, for President Trump, and for the fight against the weaponization of the justice system. He said this was always about politics and not the law, doubling down on the rhetoric of Trump, trying to make out that these were political persecutions when they were not. Critics expressed disappointment, arguing decisions undermined accountability. Adam Schiff, California Democratic senator, condemned both the Justice Department and the courts for what he called a failure to uphold justice. The DOJ, by neglecting to promptly investigate the events of January 6 in the courts, by willfully delaying progress of the case and providing immunity, Schiff said, the public deserved better. The divided reactions reflect ongoing tensions over Trump's legal battles and their broader implications for the rule of law in the United States. Trump remains a criminal who will always play the victim. And remember, the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, had made a conscious decision to not pursue Trump because of a fear of looking political back in 2021, something that Donald Trump conveniently forgets. It's not necessarily the rule of law that has failed, it's the people who administer the rule of law who failed, critics say. They didn't meet the moment or grasp the urgency of the moment. This sentiment underscores frustration with how legal institutions and officials handled these high-stakes cases, with some saying that their hesitation and delays undermined accountability and public trust. Garland has been the biggest failure when it comes to doing what he was appointed to do. He was supposed to restore the zealous pursuit of justice and apolitical prosecutorial decision-making to the Department of Justice after the hellscape of Bill Barr, rewriting the Mueller report and helping Donald Trump navigate any criticism. Merrick Garland's tenure as Attorney General has drawn criticism for prioritizing institutional preservation over the pursuit of justice. Garland has been described as an institutionalist, appears more concerned with safeguarding the DOJ's reputation and his own than addressing the pressing demands of accountability. Critics say that Garland conflates the institution of the DOJ with the concept of justice itself, a conflation that has led to decisions perceived as overly cautious or politically timid. Garland's approach to the January 6 attack is emblematic of this dynamic. Rather than pursuing Republican officials who allegedly organized the insurrection, Garland has focused primarily on prosecuting individuals who physically participated in the riot. The strategy has been criticized as insufficient to address the broader threats to democracy posed by those in power who sought to overturn the government. Garland's reliance on appointing special prosecutors further reflects his hesitancy, delegating politically sensitive cases instead of directly leading them himself. Garland's fear of appearing partisan is so profound that it effectively shields the Republicans from any scrutiny. Garland's handling of the Hunter Biden investigation is another focal point of frustration. Republicans have long targeted Hunter Biden with investigations aimed at tarnishing President Joe Biden by association. Rather than shutting down these politically motivated efforts, Garland allowed them to proceed, likely in an effort to avoid accusations of favoritism. Garland's attempt to appear apolitical has led to what many see as a double standard. While Hunter Biden has faced intense scrutiny, no comparable investigations were launched into Jared Kushner or Ivanka Trump, both of whom held government positions and faced allegations of misconduct. Garland's fear of political optics has created a maddening inconsistency that Biden's family can be investigated to avoid bias, but Trump's family cannot, for the same reason. And remember, Hunter Biden never held a position in the White House, was never part of Joe Biden's administration, merely a private individual, an addict, taken advantage of by Republican lawmakers for political collateral. The investigation into classified documents offers another example of Garland's hesitancy. After Trump refused to return the classified material, Garland authorized the retrieval of the documents from Mar-a-Lago. It was a search with a warrant, not a raid, as Donald Trump claimed. But rather than swiftly prosecuting Trump for mishandling sensitive information, Garland appointed the special counsel Jack Smith to handle the case. And while Smith has proven competent and willing to pursue justice, Garland's decision to outsource this work reflects his broader unwillingness to take direct action against politically powerful figures. This pattern of delegation has had real consequences. Garland's delay in launching a January 6 investigation allowed Trump to effectively run out the clock. And while Garland's institutional approach may stem from a desire to protect the DOJ from accusations of partisanship, it's also contributed to a perception of inaction and inconsistency. By prioritizing appearances over substance, Garland has failed to rise to the moment. As one critic said, Garland acts like the DOJ and justice are the same thing, when they're clearly not. Justice requires a willingness to take decisive action, even if it means weathering political backlash, something that Merrick Garland has repeatedly shown himself unwilling to do. The end result has shown that, again, a wealthy, white man can get away with crimes that would otherwise put ordinary people behind bars for many, many years. And to add insult to injury, the defendant in all of these cases has used his skills as a propagandist to convince half the country that despite his criminal activities, despite his anti-American behavior, that he is a suitable candidate to win the presidency once again. And he did. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.